I'm going to be speaking from down here. Yeah. How you doing? You good? Good? We're good? All right.
Spartans, can we get your attention, please? We're ready to begin. Hello, we're ready to begin. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our annual Black History Month Assembly. We are pleased to welcome our special guest, Kwesi Speaks. It is now time to acknowledge the accomplishments of the Black community and honor the brave individuals who fought for equality across the world. As a part of the student body, we appreciate being able to have an opportunity where our Black heritage and culture is prioritized and celebrated. Please join us for the prayer with a sign of our faith. Compassionate God, who sent Jesus Christ to deliver us from all the manner of injustices and inequalities, create us in new hearts and in large visions, to see the image of God in every person in perspective of background, race, and ethnicity. May we generously in our love of others as we work towards ending racism and injustice, creating communities of human flourishing through Jesus Christ, your Son, our Lord, who is alive and reigns with you. In the unity of the Holy Spirit, forever, now, and forever. Amen.
We begin today by acknowledging the traditional territory upon which we gather. For hundreds of years before we stand here today, the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Attawandaron, Huron-Wendat, and Lenape indigenous peoples have sought to walk gently on this land. They offered assistance to the first European travelers to this territory and shared their knowledge for survival in what was at times a harsh climate. Today, we acknowledge our three local communities of Muncie, Delaware, Chippewa of the Thames, and Oneida First Nations. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties, including Treaty 6, the London Township Treaty. The London District Catholic School Board seeks a new relationship with the Indigenous people of this land, a relationship with our neighbors based on honor and deep respect. In his 12 years as a police officer with the RCMP, Kwesi has experience working with the red carpet with TV stars, personally delivering the Grey Cup, and acting as personal guard for presidents and prime ministers from all over the world. However, his most impressive accomplishment to date is as a husband and a father. If you ever feel overwhelmed, anxious, or unsure, today you'll pick up the keys to resilience that will help you not only today, but throughout your whole life. Please welcome Kwesi Millington.
It just got real romantic in here just a few minutes ago, didn't it? Good morning, Spartans. No, good morning, Spartans. Okay. I want to ask you a question to start. I'm going to show you a picture, and I want you to tell me the first thing you see. Raise your hand if the first thing you see is a duck, if it'll work. Yeah, someone say a prayer for me real quick. Oh, it's not working. Did someone unplug my clicker? God speaks. It's supposed to start with a slide. Yeah, it was working. We'll get it working. Is it not working anymore? All right. We're having a commercial break. There we go. There we go. Let's get a round of applause for Kwame here. Thank you. So who sees the duck? Raise your hand. Who sees the bunny? Raise both hands if you see both. Okay. You can put your hands down. The reason I show you that picture is because I believe life works the same way. You see, you can look at the picture one way and see one thing. You can look at it another way and see something totally different. And the reason I tell you that is because a woman taught me that a long time ago. You see, years ago, this woman comes home from a long day at work. She's a nurse, she's pregnant, and she walks into her Montreal townhouse and she sees something on her kitchen table that changes her life forever. She walks into her house, she walks into her kitchen, she picks up a receipt for a baby crib. Now, you might be thinking, if she's pregnant, a receipt for a baby crib makes sense, right? But here's the thing. This woman already had a crib. That receipt was for a second crib. And she wasn't having twins. Can you imagine what she must have been thinking? Can you imagine what she must have been feeling? When her man walks in the door, she shows him the receipt, and he's forced to admit that not only is he having an affair, but he admitted he was having an affair and he was about to have a child with another woman. Listen, you know, all joking aside, can you imagine what that woman must have been feeling? I don't have to imagine, because that woman, her name is Carolyn, and she's my mother. Yes, that's me. Listen, soon after she got that news, my mother left my father, Obs. And you know what? Growing up, my mother worked multiple jobs to put food on the table. And she always tried to make me happy. And here's the thing. Because of that, because she was the parent that stuck around, I always wanted to make her proud. Raise your hand if you like making your parents proud. Parents or parent, if you have one. So on May 16, 2005, when I became a police officer with Canada's National Police Force, I'll never forget. I'm at Regina Airport. My mother comes down to see me graduate. She gives me the biggest hug and she says, "Son, I'm so proud of you." Isn't it cool when they actually say it? And listen, I got to do some cool things in my career, right? I got some good photo ops. I met television stars from all over the world. Yeah. Okay. You can say it. Riz. But listen. As cool as some of the stuff I got to do was, I'll be honest, the best part of my career was day one when my mother said she was so proud of me. Oh, thank you. But everything would change 6 years into my career. 6 years after I graduated, I was involved in one of Canada's biggest police cases at the time. And as police officers, sometimes we have to go to court, we have to testify. And so I had to go to court, I had to testify as to what I did in this case. And there was a long time between the actual case and when I testified, so I forgot some things. Raise your hand if you've ever forgotten something. We've all done it. So I forgot some details of the case, and they were purely accidental. But when I got home back to Toronto after testifying, there was a letter waiting for me. And that letter said, "Constable Millington, you've been charged with perjury." Does anyone know what perjury means? Exactly, lying. Listen, I was charged with lying when I testified, and I will tell you this, I've never lied a day in my career. But I was still charged, I was convicted, and I was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison. And just like that, everything I worked so hard for, everything that my mom was so proud of me for was gone. And you see, that's why I showed you that picture in the beginning, is because my mother always just say to me, "Son, you can't always control your reality, but you can control your response. You can't control the stresses that you go through. You can't control the failures that you go through, but you can control how you respond to them." So you fast forward to today, and I get to be here with you. And honestly, I will tell you, I feel grateful. I'm the father to a 4-year-old little boy, and I get to travel all over Canada speaking to students just like you. And people ask me, "Kwesi, how did you go from losing everything to now you speak to thousands of students all over the country?" And I say it came down to a conversation that I had with my mother. Now, I don't know what your favorite breakfast food is, but mine's pancakes. And we went out for breakfast one morning, and I finally sat down and I said, "Mom, listen, everything that happened with Dad years ago, he cheated on you, he had another child, you never took him to court, you never went after him, you were never bitter." And I said, "Mom, how did you do it? How were you able to let all that go?" And she simply said to me, "Son, I chose not to be bitter." Everybody put a hand up in the air. Put your hand on your chest, and I want you to repeat after me. I get to choose. If you remember nothing else today, remember that. See, all I'm going to talk to you today is choices that you can make in your life. Choices that, honestly, I wish I made when I was your age. Choices on how to deal with failure, how to deal with disappointment. Because I made the wrong choice time and time again. And the first wrong choice I made came with this one question: how do you deal with failure? I want to make sure I'm in the right room. Raise your hand if you were failed before. Okay. Now keep your hand up if you failed and you never tried again at that one thing. See, that happened to me a long time ago, but my mother taught me a lesson on how to deal with failure. But first, let me take you back to grade 1. In grade 1, yes, that's me, I was in something called a spelling bee. Has anyone ever heard of a spelling bee? I don't think we do them anymore, but I was in a spelling bee. And so here's how a spelling bee would work if you've never seen one. Students stand at the front of the class, and one by one, they're given a word to spell. If they get it right, they get to stay in the contest. If they get it wrong, they have to sit down. And there was 30 students in my grade 1 class, and one by one, student was eliminated until it came down to the final 2. In one corner, it was me, and the other corner, Sweet Sarah. Now, why do I call her Sweet Sarah? I call her Sweet Sarah because she had cute little pigtails, perfect little dress. Cutest little girl, yeah. But it was me, it was sweet Sarah. Mrs. K, our homeroom teacher, gives us our final word, always. Easy, right? I'm up first. I stand in the front of the class and I look out proudly like I'm looking at you right now. And I spell the word, always. ALLWAYS. Thumbs up? Thumbs down? Yeah. What mistake did I make? You seem confident. Add in an extra L. Right? Everybody knows always has one L in it, but I didn't. But I thought I would have won. And I was excited because the prize was huge. The prize for winning the grade 1 spelling bee was a pack of pencil crayons. Yep. And listen, I didn't win. But here's the thing, sweet Sarah, she knew how to spell always. She spelled the word correctly. And she won. Now, looking back, is it a big deal that I failed a grade 1 spelling bee? No. But you know what is a big deal? What is a big deal is how I started to look at myself after that day. See, as I got older, I was that kid that started sitting in the back of the class. Year by year, as I got older, you couldn't have got a word out of me. Not only did I never compete in any spelling bees again, but I wasn't putting up my hand in class. I wasn't putting myself out there because I said, you know what? I'm not putting myself out there because no one is ever gonna know how stupid I am ever again. I don't know if anyone in here has ever felt that. If you've ever felt stupid, if you've ever said names to yourself, called yourself things, put yourself down. You see, for years I did that. But just a few years later, when I was 13 years old, my mother taught me a lesson. She taught me a lesson on how I should deal with failure. And listen, I think it's how we should all deal with failure. But she taught me it in kind of a cruel way. It's Christmas morning, and I'm 13 years old, and I have a question for you. Raise your hand if you've ever received a gift you didn't like. A gift you didn't like. Now keep your hand up if it was someone who you care about, right? Someone you love, but they give you a gift you didn't like. Did you pretend you were happy? Yeah? Okay. So when I was young, there was one thing I wanted when I was 13 years old. Now, when I was 13, I don't know if anyone here is like me, but I was what was called or referred to as a gamer. Does anyone like video games in here? Okay. Now, my favorite company, I think, is the best company in the world for making video games. And this is my opinion. You don't have to share my opinion, but I think the best company in the world is Nintendo. But if you've ever heard of Nintendo, it's probably not the Nintendo that you're thinking of. See, I used to want something so badly, and this one gaming console was called a Game Boy. Has anyone ever heard of a Game Boy? Well, all year long, I'd been asking my mom, please, Mom, I want this, please, please, please. And then Christmas morning comes. And on Christmas morning in our house, it's all about the smell of freshly baked bread. Christmas carols playing. And I remember I jump up, I race out to the living room of our small apartment, and then I see it. I see the Christmas tree, I see the star, and I see the gift. And I go underneath and I get it, the size is just right. I tear off the wrapping, and there are 2 words on the box: medical kit. Now, why on earth would my mother get me a medical kit? Well, here's the thing. My dad was a doctor. And for a while, I thought I wanted to be a doctor. So yeah, it makes sense that she'd get me a medical kit for Christmas. But I'm like, Mom, this doesn't say made by Nintendo. But here's the thing. My mom was always big on gratitude in our house. Did any of your parents like that? Anyone have parents that are always reminding you how grateful you should be for everything you have? My mom was always like that. You gotta be grateful, you gotta be grateful. And in my house, my mom would mention one country all the time. Anytime she was telling me be grateful for what you have, for some reason she loved mentioning Africa. Son, you know there's kids in Africa that don't have enough to eat. Son, you know there's kids in Africa that would love to have a medical kit. Son, you know there's kids in Africa that have never heard of Nintendo. And she would say it over and over again. I'm like, okay, Mom, fine, that's cool. So I open up the medical kit. And what was inside the box? The Game Boy. The Game Boy was inside the box. So I look at my mom, I'm like, oh, thank you, Mom. Oh my gosh, thank you. Give her the biggest hug. Yes, that's me in my NHL pajamas. And you know what? I turn over the Game Boy. And I'm about to put batteries inside. And then my mother said something to me. She said something that didn't mean as much to that 13-year-old boy as it means to me today. My mother looked at me and she said, son, I knew you wouldn't like the wrapping, but I knew you'd love the gift. You see, one of my favorite speakers, her name is Lisa Nichols. She once said that sometimes in life your motivation comes wrapped in sandpaper. Or as my mother would put it, sometimes in life you don't like the wrappings you're given. Maybe it's a test you failed. Maybe it's a team you didn't make. Maybe it's friends that have left your life. Has anyone ever had that? You ever have friends that you think they're your ride or die, and then for some reason they're just not talking to you anymore? See, I learned that lesson tough. When I was in prison, I learned that lesson. I thought people that said, you know what, I'm gonna come visit you, I'm gonna write you letters, I got your back, gone. Or maybe you're sitting in this room and you're going through a personal situation. Maybe like me, your father's not in your life. Maybe there's something going on. But I'm gonna tell you what my mother taught me that Christmas morning, not focusing on the wrapping, looking for the gift. I'm not saying life is perfect, but I am saying, can you look at your situations and look at the other side? You see, if you raise your hand that friends aren't in your life anymore, people walked out of your life, sometimes I realize that the people that walk out of your life ain't meant to be in your life. And for me, not having a dad in my life, you know what? I have a 4-year-old son now. And sometimes the negative situations teach you how not to be. So I'm just gonna be the most annoying in my son's face dad in history. I'm gonna be there. It's all about looking at the other side. And so I would need that lesson. You see, when I walk through those prison doors, that's the ultimate situation, right? Where you don't like the wrapping, you don't like the place you're in. But when my mother came to visit me, she reminded me of that story. She reminded me of the Game Boy story. Don't focus on the wrapping, look for the gift. So I decided, okay, I'm on the inside now. What can I do? What's the possibility of positivity here? So I walked into the prison school and I became an English tutor. And by the time I walked out of those prison doors, I'd helped over 30 inmates get their high school diploma. And that's not because I'm so great, it's because I remembered my mother saying, don't focus on what you're given. Don't focus on the wrapping, look for the gift. The first choice, I said to you earlier, I want you to choose. The first thing you gotta choose when you go through tough situation is you gotta choose how you think about it. The first choice is choosing your thoughts. And I don't want to just talk today and have you just go home and not remember this. So I actually want you to do something. Every single one of you, when you go home, I want you to apply what I call the toilet paper rule. What's the toilet paper rule? I'm gonna ask you a personal question. Who are the people in this room that put their toilet paper on the roll over, with the sheets flowing over? So there's over and there's under. Who puts their sheets on over? Are there any under people in the room? Any under people in the room? Here's what I want you to do. When you go home tonight, I want you to switch all the toilet paper rolls in your house. And that sounds like a weird request, but they've actually done studies showing that when you make a small change in your life, you switch the toilet paper roll at home. You walk a different way to school. You change something small that you can see every single day. Your brain actually expands, and you say to yourself, you know what? If I can look at that differently, I can look at other things differently as well. So they've done studies that actually show if you change your toilet paper roll, you build resilience. It's the craziest thing. So the first thing you gotta do is choose your thoughts. The second thing you gotta do, I learned when I went to university. Now I'll be honest, I was not the best student, and there were times I was like, I just wanna be done. I wanna get through with school. Has anyone ever had that feeling? You know what? I wanna be done. And it's nothing against any teachers. I've had great teachers in my life. But I get to university and I graduate. And then something happened in university that forced me to say, you know what? I'm not the most confident person, but now I think I need to work on my confidence. Now I need to build my confidence. And what happened is this. In university, I had a crush on a girl. Now I want you to be honest, raise your hand if you've ever had a crush on someone. Raise your hand. Hand up, hand up. Your hand was up? Yeah. I just want to know, what's your name? What's your name? What's your name?
My name's Hannah.
Hannah? What did you do about the crush? What did you do? So you had a crush on someone? What did you do about it? Did you talk to them? You did? Okay, that's good. That's something to be proud of. Raise your hand if you had a crush on someone and you actually talked to them. Okay, I'm proud of all of you because I was 19 years old. I was 19 years old. And I couldn't talk to my crush. When I was 19 years old, I had a crush on this girl. And her name is Rita. Now, Rita was in the nursing program and I was in business, but we shared some of the same classes. And every time I would see Rita, I would just watch her walk into the class. I'd be looking at her all thirsty. And I'd be like, I should say something, right? But you know, inside I still felt like that shy kid. So every time she'd walk in the classroom, she'd walk out and 3 words would stop me every single time. She'd walk out and I would say, maybe next time. I would see her at the gym. The same thing would happen. She'd walk into the gym, she'd do her workout, long brown hair flowing, almost like she was in a Pantene Pro V commercial. And I'd want to talk to her because the gym is my place, right? I like going to the gym. But she'd walk out and I would just say those words again, maybe next time. Finally, I thought, you know what? I need to work on my confidence. I mean, I'm 19 years old and I can't even talk to a girl. Most of you are younger than me. And so I said, you know, what can I do to build more confidence? And then I saw this job advertisement. And back in my day, we used to search for jobs in something called a newspaper. And I would see these jobs. And so I saw this job at a place called Ontario Place in Toronto. And I remember I go down and I think, you know what? If I get this job at Ontario Place, I'm going to be forced to talk to people. Hundreds of thousands of people come through this place all summer. I can work on my confidence. I can work on how I communicate, not just to talk to girls, but just to feel better about myself. So I get this resume together and I go down to the job fair. I walk into Ontario Place. There's students everywhere. The place is packed. I put my resume down on the table, and who do you think was at the job fair? Rita. Rita was at that job fair. She's at the other end of the table. She's talking to organizers. She's talking to other students. And I think, this is my chance, right? Right? Go walk up to her, all sly, say hi. But what did I do? I couldn't do it. I looked at her and I said, okay, yeah, she's probably busy. Maybe next time. You know, I walked out of there and I didn't get the job. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part is I'm back in class a couple of weeks later, minding my own business. And who do you think walks up to me? I don't need to fill in the blanks. I'm sitting there minding my business, doing my work. Rita walks up to me and she says, hey, didn't I see you at Ontario Place a couple of weeks ago? I have to act cool at this time because I'm embarrassed that I had no confidence to talk to her. I look up and I say, yeah, I was there. Were you there? I played I didn't see her. She just looked at me and she said, you know what? It's too bad you didn't come up to me. I know all the organizers. I've worked there before. I could have gotten you a job. I know, shoulder slump moment, right? I just said, thanks, Rita. Maybe next time. Why do I tell you that? You know, a couple of months later, I'm walking on campus, and don't I see Rita walking with her boyfriend, not me, on the campus of Ryerson University. I missed my chance. Why do I tell you that? I tell you that because a lot of times people see me standing in front of a room, they hear me tell the story, they say, oh yeah, you're full of swag, you must have walked up to her, you're probably married to her right now, have a white picket fence and 3 kids. No. What I realize in life is that a lot of times we think things are pretty easy, but the way we feel about ourselves determines if we take action. The way we feel about ourselves determines if we're actually going to do something. And sometimes we're too afraid to do that thing we want to do. Too afraid to take a chance. Raise your hand if you've ever been too nervous or too scared to do something. See, we've all had it. But sometimes, even when you're nervous, even when you're scared, you got to jump in. Because what I've learned is action cures fear. I call it the double Dutch rule. Has anyone ever heard of the game double Dutch? The skipping game. So if you've never heard of it, it was popularized in the 40s and 50s by young black girls in the States. 2 skipping ropes. Girl stands on either side and they spin the ropes and someone jumps in between. And I remember growing up, I used to walk outside school and I would see girls playing this and they would jump in and they would sing their songs and do their little raps. And I loved watching it. Has anyone actually seen someone play double Dutch? Have you ever seen that one annoying person who just refuses to jump in? And they're waiting forever. They're waiting to jump in. What I realize is that life works the same way. A lot of times people are afraid to jump in. So I want to test this crowd to see who's willing in here today to jump in. I need a volunteer. Now, before you volunteer, I appreciate the enthusiasm, but let me tell you what you're volunteering for. I need a volunteer that knows how to do push-ups. You still volunteering? Come here. Okay. Okay, let's give her a hand for coming on up, first of all. What's your name? Ashley. Ashley? A-S? A-S-L-I-E. L-I-E? We're gonna go to the stage, Ashley. Okay. Ashley. Ashley. I know you're nervous, okay? How many push-ups do you think you can do, Ashley? No, you're gonna do as many as you can, but I just wanna know how many do you think you know 100% you could do? Like how many more do you think you could do? 25? Okay, Ashley says 25 push-ups. Can we help Ashley count the push-ups? Okay, so Ashley, you're just gonna do as many as you can. They're gonna count for you, okay? All right? When you're ready, get down, let's go. Everybody ready? All right, let's count for her. Okay, go. 13, 14, 15, keep going. 16, good. 17, 18, 19, keep going. 20, come on. 1, we're here, we're doing it. 2, 3, you got it. 2 more, we're staying here. 4, okay, 1 more. And, okay, you're doing the last one. We never quit. Do 1 more for me. You got it, you got this, you got it. Even a half push up. Wow, all right, let's give Ashley a hand. Come on down, come on down. Listen, don't sit down yet. Don't sit down yet. Don't you dare hang your head down. Don't you dare hang your head down, because here's the thing. Ashley, when I asked, you kind of put your hand up. You put your hand up right away. And this has nothing to do with how many push-ups you did. What I realize is that in life, we have 3 types of people. Every time I ask someone to do push-ups, the first type of student puts their hand up. You're not sure, but you jump in. And I want you to keep that spirit with everything you do in life. Saying, you know what? I'm willing to try. I'm willing to push myself out there. I'm gonna give you something for coming up here, okay? What size do you wear? Medium? Let's give Ashley a hand for coming on up, okay? I mentioned there's 3 types of students. First type of student, when I say who wants to do push-ups, hand goes up like Ashley. I want you to keep your hand, I want you to keep that spirit in your life. The second type of student, yeah, okay. The second type of student is the person who says, you know what, I'm not sure. And so when I say, do you want to do push-ups? They're like, oh, look at someone else, please. The third type of student is the one that's like, you know what, I probably could do push-ups, but let me see if anyone else in my row is doing them. You see, what I've learned is that in life, we have to have that ability to jump in, that ability to say, you know what, let's jump in no matter what happens. That's the double Dutch rule. So why don't people jump in? See, the last thing I want to share with you, I learned when I was in prison. I walked through those doors, and I remember I walked in October 31st, 2017. On October 31st, 2017, I don't know what you do on Halloween, but I walked through the prison doors. The warden comes up to me and he says, you know what? We're not going to place you with the rest of the prisoners because you're a cop. Why would he say that to me? Protection, exactly. So for my protection, I was placed in solitary. This was my actual cell. I was in a 7 by 11 foot cell for 23 and a half hours a day. And I remember sitting in there, and I showed this picture to a student once, and they said, you know what? That doesn't look so bad. At first, I'm like, who's this little punk kid? But then I looked at them and I said, you know what? You're right. You're right. Because it's not really the incarceration that mattered. It's the isolation. See, during the pandemic, it wasn't about being at home, because let's face it, is being at home the worst part of the pandemic? No, it was the empty streets. It was the empty stores, the people that we couldn't see. And I remember I look at the warden and I say, you know what? I need something to pass the time in here. And I was given books. I was given access to books in the library. And I remember I go to the library and I pick up a book that changed everything for me. The book is called A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. As I'm sitting in that cell, he said something that I'll never forget. He said, give up defining yourself to others. And I realized in life, the best thing you can possibly do is ask yourself, am I trying to prove myself to someone else? I realized that's what I've been doing my whole life. I looked back in my life and I realized, you know what? I've been trying to prove that I'm good enough. Trying to prove that I'm good enough as a police officer. Trying to prove that I'm good enough even when I was young as students to other people just so I could make friends. Have you ever tried to do that? Tried to prove you're good enough to other people? See, I did that when I was young. And I can tell you, that's my son, my 4-year-old son. And they did a study and they showed that children smile 400 times a day. The average person only smiles 20 times a day. And I thought, you know why kids are so happy? Because kids don't try to prove themselves to other people. Kids aren't on social media trying to get likes. Kids aren't on social media trying to one-up each other. They're not trying to prove how many followers they have. And listen, I'm not bashing social media, but I am saying the best thing about being in that cell was that I didn't have my cell. And when I was inside, I realized that I have no job, no access to the outside world, but I had nothing to prove, nothing to define, and nothing to defend. And so what I want you to do is choose yourself. I have something that I call the 15-minute rule. You know that studies show that people pick up their cell phones, 80% of people pick up their cell phones within the first 15 minutes of the day? Raise your hand if you're in that statistic. Pick up your cell phone within the first 15 minutes of the day. Some of you are like, I pick it up first thing in the morning before I get out of bed. I'm not saying not to do that, but I am saying that if you start your day looking at other people's lives, looking at what other people are doing, wondering if Taylor Swift went to the Super Bowl, if you start your day in other people's lives, then how can you focus on yourself? So I'm going to give you a challenge. I want you to set a timer. Allow you to use your phone to set a timer for the first 15 minutes of the morning. Spend it off your phone. I don't care what you do, whether it's journaling, whether it's meditation, whatever it is, spend your first 15 minutes not online. And one of the things that I do in the morning that people kind of make fun of me for is I open my journal and I write down one thing I'm grateful for. So why do I do that? I do that because when I walked into that cell, they give me this kit. And the kit had a razor, soap, towel, toothbrush, and toothpaste. But something was missing. Something was missing that I desperately needed. Can anyone guess what a man of my complexion might need that wasn't on that list? Lotion, thank you. So listen, the reason why is very scientific. Black people have something called, well, we all have something called ceramides in our skin. Black people have fewer ceramides than other nationalities, so our skin tends to be drier. And after 3 weeks in prison with no lotion, with no moisturization, my lips were cracking, they were bleeding. 3 weeks in, my wife gets enough money into my prison account and I'm able to buy chapstick. And you think, chapstick, that's not a big deal, right? But I remember I open it up, I take it into my cell, I put it on my lips, and I start to cry. Because it felt so good. Then I look at this little chapstick and I actually started to laugh. I thought, you know what? I can't believe this little thing gave me so much happiness. And so I immediately took out a journal and I started writing down everything that I was grateful for. I wrote down that I have free food, not good food, but free clothes, a place to stay. And it sounds funny that I would write that in a prison, but aren't there homeless people right here in London that don't have that? And I realized that when you celebrate what you have every day, no matter how your life is going, when you celebrate what you have, when you write down what you're grateful for, every day becomes a celebration. So I'll leave you with this. I mentioned my son is 4 years old. And he's super cute, but there's times when he drives me absolutely crazy. There's times when my wife will have to sleep in his bedroom. There's times when I've had to sleep in his bedroom. There's times when he's driven me nuts. There's times my wife has actually said to me, should we just sell him on Facebook Marketplace? Now, of course, she's kidding, I think. But there's no amount of money you'd give me to sell my son. But why is that? Why is my son priceless? I look at my son and I say, he's priceless, of course. And most people would say that about a young child. But what makes him priceless? I mean, he's never started a business, never worked a job, has no TikTok followers, but he's priceless. There's nothing he has to do or say or make to establish his worth. And if he's priceless, then so are you. And the one thing I want you to remember is that there are times in your life when people will beat you down. There's times in your life when you'll fail at things. But if you hang on to those 4 words we started with, I get to choose, then you can absolutely overcome anything. That's my time. Thank you for yours. Mm.